I was born rebellious. I never understood what people said. My foster mother said my brother could go to school but I couldn't because he had something I didn't. So that night I took scissors and cut it right off. My foster parents went ballistic. They beat me within an inch of my life, then gave me to the village's old bachelor. I put rat poison directly in the old bachelor's food. That same day he was hospitalized. I was sent back home. My foster parents wouldn't feed me, saying they'd starve me to death. Since that's how it is, then nobody eats. I ran to the fields and set fire to the entire village's crops. The day my biological parents found me, the whole village was celebrating with drums, music and firecrackers. My foster mother grabbed my mom's hand, tears streaming down. "Your daughter is seriously sick. When you have time, take her to get her brain checked." My mom didn't understand what she meant at the time. Not until I got home. Her foster daughter was crying pitifully in front of me. "Pearl, your old room gets so much sun. I'm used to living there. Can you let me keep it?" I looked at her with full sympathy. "Sis, will you die if you don't get sun?" "No," Grace spread her hands. "But the doctor said I'm cold-natured and must get 8 hours of sun every day. So I'll have to trouble you to live in the maid's room, because I'm using all the other rooms too." When she said this, she sounded like a mansion lady from the Old South telling a servant girl what to do. She didn't even wait for me to refuse. She had people throw my things into the maid's room. Watching her back, I smiled. Then I went to the market and bought 18 space heaters. In the dead of night, I snuck into Grace's. Then I placed all the space heaters around her bed, cranked every single one to maximum and plugged them in. An hour later, Grace let out a pig-like scream. She was nearly roasted into human jerky, her whole body red, her face covered in large red rashes. Mom and Dad sent her to the hospital overnight. When they came back, they checked the surveillance footage and discovered I was the culprit. Before dawn, I was yanked out of bed. Dad's face was dark. "Why did you put space heaters in her room?" "To help cure her." I yawned. "She said she was cold-natured and needed sun. I was just trying to help her recover faster." Dad suppressed his rage. "What about the sleeping pill?" I blinked. I was afraid she couldn't stand it. If she was asleep, she wouldn't feel the heat. Unfortunately, Dad didn't praise me for my thoughtfulness. He was trembling with anger, so choked up he couldn't speak. Mom rubbed his back while telling me to stop talking. She forced me to promise to go to the hospital and apologize to Grace. Seeing both of them nearly fainting from anger, I nodded. Early the next morning, I went to the market and bought a fruit basket, then followed Mom to the hospital. Entering the hospital room, I said sorry to Grace. Just then, the doctor needed Mom to sign something, so she left the room. The moment she left, Grace's expression changed. First, she had me peel an orange for her. After I handed it over, she looked at me and smiled. "Well, you know what? Your parents like me more. The moment you were kidnapped, they went to the orphanage and adopted me. For 5 years, they never mentioned you in front of me. Right before you came back, they were so worried they didn't sleep all night. Tell me, when even your own parents don't like you, what a failure you must be. If I were you, I'd go back to that hillbilly village. Stop causing trouble for every..." Before the word "everyone" left her mouth, I slapped it right back in. I jumped on her body and slapped her left and right. Smack, smack, smack. A few slaps later, Grace finally found her voice and started wailing. But I hadn't had enough fun yet. Someone yanked me off. "Pearl Carter. What are you doing?" I looked up. It was my brother Ethan, who I hadn't seen in a long time. When I came home yesterday, Mom and Dad said he was on a business trip. I spotted his small suitcase by the door. He must have rushed straight from the airport. But looking at how agitated he was, he obviously didn't rush here for me. Sure enough, after checking Grace's injuries, he pointed at my nose and cursed. "Are you insane?" I told him, "Nope." Grace beside us started crying. "Ethan, what do I do? Pearl really doesn't like me at all." I just asked her a few questions about her previous life and she started hitting me. Maybe I should just move out. Her crying broke my brother's heart. He grabbed my wrist with a cold face. "Apologize." I didn't understand. "Why?" "Because you scared her." Ethan was furious. "She didn't provoke you, didn't offend you. You just randomly hit people. Shouldn't you apologize?" Before he finished speaking, I pulled out a voice recorder from my pocket. From the moment I entered the room to when Grace asked me to peel an orange all the way to when I slapped her, I played it all. The room fell silent in an instant. Grace's face turned from white to red. Ethan's face turned from red to white. He looked at Grace and frowned. How could you say that to her? Grace looked like she'd suffered the greatest injustice. I didn't mean any harm. I just wanted to joke with Pearl. I figured any normal person wouldn't believe that. But Ethan did. He turned to look at me. Pearl, you heard it. He was just joking with you. Grace is your sister after all. Can't you, as the older sister, be a little more tolerant? Stop being so petty about everything, okay? I thought about it and said, okay. Seeing my attitude soften, Ethan's attitude also became less harsh. He came over and gave me a hug. Welcome home. Then he told me to delete the recording. He warned me not to let Mom and Dad hear these words. Dad has always felt very guilty about losing you. So let's try not to bring up that time in front of them. Just consider it the past. I knew he wasn't afraid of Mom and Dad being sad. He was afraid they'd blame Grace if they found out. But I still deleted it. After all, after those slaps, I wasn't angry anymore. Just after I deleted it, Mom came back. Seeing Grace's pig-like swollen face, she was a bit surprised. But under Ethan's smooth talking, she believed it was Grace who accidentally bumped into something herself. Mom told Ethan that the doctor said Grace could be discharged. The company had some issues, he needed to rush back. Ethan would need to handle the discharge procedures, then send us both home. Ethan was 100% happy to do things for Grace. An hour later, Ethan finished the paperwork and was about to take Grace and me to the car when Grace let out an ow. Ethan immediately asked what was wrong. Grace pointed at me, then at the back seat. Ethan, I still have injuries on my face. The doctor said I can't be exposed to wind. Pearl has a smell on her. I feel sick smelling it, I want to throw up. She actually dry heaved twice and her eyes instantly reddened. Maybe it's because of Pearl's previous living environment. I'm not looking down on Pearl. I just really feel uncomfortable right now. Can you have Pearl take a taxi home? Or walk back? It's only about 4 to 5 miles anyway. I stood there without saying a word, watching Ethan frown. He actually lowered his head and thought for a few seconds, then looked at me. Pearl, how about you? Before he could finish, I agreed. I can walk back. But I want to put something in your car. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief and opened the car door. What do you want to put? I smiled, pulled out a lighter from my pocket, lit it, and threw it directly inside. A fire. Ethan's car was probably decorated by Grace. There were many dolls inside. The moment the lighter was thrown in, those dolls instantly ignited. The fire shot up high. By the time Mom and Dad got the news and rushed over, the entire car was burned to just a frame. Mom and Dad looked at Ethan and Grace huddled together, their faces pale with fright, then looked at me with my expressionless face. They finally remembered what my foster mother had said to them that day.
The moment the lighter was thrown in, those dolls instantly ignited. The fire shot up high. By the time Mom and Dad got the news and rushed over, the entire car was burned to just a frame. Mom and Dad looked at Ethan and Grace huddled together, their faces pale with fright, then looked at me with my expressionless face. They finally remembered what my foster mother had said to them that day. All four reached an agreement, forget the car, they needed to get me to see a brain doctor first. Mom and Dad took me to the city's best psychiatric hospital. After a series of tests and evaluations, the expert told them I had a textbook case of antisocial personality disorder. Mom cried on the spot. Dad held his forehead and sighed repeatedly. Ethan stood to the side, his face iron blue. Just then, Grace spoke up softly, Mom, Dad, Ethan, don't worry yet. I happen to know a very skilled psychologist, an expert from overseas who just came back to open a practice. He's especially good at treating this type of special case. Hearing this, everyone grabbed onto it like a lifeline. Mom and Dad told him to contact them immediately. Ethan even patted his shoulder in relief, our Grace is really capable. Only I looked at him quietly, feeling he wasn't being this kind-hearted. A few days later, Grace told Mom and Dad he'd contacted that doctor. However, the doctor had a rather eccentric personality, only one family member was allowed to observe each session. Since Grace made the contact, naturally only he would accompany me. The place Grace took me to wasn't any psychology clinic at all, it was a remote kennel in the suburbs. The moment we got out of the car, he showed his true colors. His face no longer had that gentle weakness, only sharp smugness. Right here, I surveyed the surroundings, my tone calm. Calling this a dog training facility would be an insult to the word facility. This is just a dog kennel. Behind us were rows and rows of iron cages with vicious dogs barking wildly inside. What else? Grace sneered. Pearl Carter, look at what you are. You think you deserve to see an expert? I asked him, aren't you afraid Mom and Dad will find out? He dismissed it, you're a mental patient now. Who's going to believe a mental patient? I calmly asked, why do you hate me so much? Why else? Because I hate you, his face was vicious. You should have rotted in that village, rotted in your home. As soon as you came back, all of Mom and Dad's attention was on you.
You shouldn't have come back. Seeing him so self-righteous, I laughed in anger. Why shouldn't I come back? This is my home. If it weren't for you disappearing, you think Mom and Dad would even look at me? Grace, if I hadn't disappeared, you think Mom and Dad would even glance at you? Grace was enraged. Your home? Dream on. These 5 years I've been the one by Mom, Dad, and Ethan's side. They already see me as their real daughter. So what if you came back? They think you're dirty, they think you're crazy. I'm telling you, Pearl. Be smart and go back to your hillbilly village yourself. Otherwise what? I asked him. He smiled creepily. I'll make you disappear. Looking at the familiar face, my heart skipped a beat. I instinctively raised my hand to strike him. But before my hand was even halfway up, a large hand from the side grabbed it tightly. At the same time, 2 more men ran out from inside. I was thrown to the ground, my head pressed into the dirt. Seeing this, Grace laughed triumphantly. Pearl Carter, we're already here. You think I'd still let you hit me? He walked forward, reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the voice recorder. I knew your cheap bones would try this trick. You were trying to bait me into saying stuff just now, right? Too bad. He viciously smashed the recorder on the ground and crushed it hard with his heel. He squatted down, used his finger to lift my chin, then slapped down hard. Pearl Carter, aren't you antisocial? Don't you like violence? Today I'll use violence to treat you real good. After several consecutive slaps, I tasted blood in my mouth. My breathing became heavy, my whole body excited. Gracechin, you better kill me today. Otherwise, don't expect to live. He paused slightly, then laughed. Crazy person is just a crazy person. Since you want a beating so badly, I'll satisfy you. Grace stepped back a few steps. This is just a mad dog. Please train her well. However, after they hit me a few times, I suddenly raised my head and gave Grace an extremely eerie smile. That smile made him instinctively feel a chill down his spine. Grace. My voice wasn't loud, but it clearly reached his ears. What do you think Mom, Dad, and Ethan would think if they saw you like this now, if they heard what you just said? Grace sneered. Stop trying to scare me. Your recorder is already destroyed. Even if you get hurt today, they'll just think you're a mental patient who got into a fight with someone. A crazy person who only knows violence. Nobody will believe you. Oh really? I tilted my head and used my one free hand to pull out a small device from my pocket. It was a miniature recording device. The indicator light was faintly flashing red. Grace's pupils constricted. At the same time, police sirens sounded outside. I laughed even louder. Didn't expect that, did you? Even mental patients call the police. Bursting through the door with the police were Mom and Dad. The moment Grace saw them, his face went white, his legs went weak, but he still couldn't help stepping forward to explain. Dad, Mom, I didn't mean to. Let me explain. Mom looked disappointed. What's there to explain? We heard everything. Dad also shook his head. We adopted you because Pearl was lost, wanting to give ourselves some comfort. All these years we feel we haven't treated you badly. Because we felt we owed you, we were doubly good to you. But I never thought that in your heart, you couldn't tolerate our biological daughter at all. Since that's the case, there's no need for you to continue staying in our home. After today's matter is resolved, we'll contact the orphanage. No. An urgent voice called out. After shouting this, Ethan rushed off the car. He pulled Grace behind him. I won't allow you to send Grace away. Mom frowned. Ethan, do you know what he did to Pearl? Ethan, I didn't mean to. Grace grabbed Ethan's clothes and started crying. I really wanted to cure Pearl. What I did just now was all an act. At this point, Mom no longer believed him. An act? Cure her by bringing her here? What do you take Pearl for? A mad dog. Isn't she? Ethan's one sentence made everyone fall silent. I looked up at him. He didn't dare meet my eyes. What's the difference between Pearl Carter now and a mad dog? She kills, she commits arson, she does all kinds of evil. How much chaos has she brought to our home since coming back? Disgust was written all over Ethan's face, impossible to hide. You shouldn't send Grace back to the orphanage. You should send Pearl Carter to a mental institution. As soon as his words fell, Dad slapped him across the face. Bastard. Pearl is your real sister. She suffered so much before coming back. How can you say such things? Ethan's cheek instantly turned red, but he still kept Grace protected behind him. Suffered? Who knows if those experiences are real or fake? All I know is that for these 5 years, it was Grace who stayed by our side. If you insist on sending Grace away, fine, I'll leave with him. Hearing this, I laughed out loud. Everyone's eyes instantly focused on me. I looked at Ethan, my tone flat and calm. Ethan, you like him so much. If he's not going to an orphanage but to prison instead, will you still go with him? Ethan suddenly exploded. Pearl Carter, what are you trying to do? You only got slapped a few times. Minor injuries that can't even be verified. With me here, don't think about charging him. The smile on my face deepened. Who told you I want to charge him with assault? I stared at Grace, enunciating each word. I want to charge him with human trafficking. As soon as I said this, everyone froze. The first to react was Ethan. He was furious. Pearl Carter, to drive Grace away, you really can say anything. 5 years ago he was only 12 years old. How could he possibly have trafficked you? I sneered. How do you know the person who trafficked me wasn't a kid? Ethan crossed his arms. The surveillance from the day you disappeared. Mom and Dad watched it countless times. The person who took you was clearly a little old lady. The way I was trafficked was very simple, I said calmly. On the first day of school I met a little old lady on the bus. She had a heart attack next to me, grabbed my hand and asked me to take her to the hospital. After getting off the bus with her, I flagged down a taxi. Didn't expect that taxi was working with the old lady. They drove me out of the city, then deep into the mountains. What Mom and Dad don't know is that although the person who trafficked me appeared to be a little old lady on the surface, later I heard him talking with his accomplice in his normal voice. It was very childish, just a 12 or 13-year-old kid. You're judging that Grace trafficked you based on just this? Ethan found it absurd. Did you watch too many TV dramas? You think all the coincidences in the world are the same. I gave him a cold look. You're the one who watched too many dramas. You think his disguise years ago was convincing? I recognized him the first time I saw him. He was that little old lady. Especially the mole at the corner of his eye. Exactly the same as that person. Just based on a mole? Ethan sneered. Lots of people have moles at the corner of their eyes. By your logic, everyone with that appearance trafficked you. Not just Ethan. Mom and Dad also felt my judgment was too far-fetched. They told me Grace was adopted from an orphanage. At the time, the orphanage director said he'd lived in the orphanage since childhood, and was the most well-behaved and sensible of all the kids. If Grace really was the kind of person I described, how could the orphanage director not see it? I spread my hands. That only means the orphanage director is part of his gang. Nonsense. Grace, who'd been silent, got angry. Director Mom is the best, most loving person in the world. I won't allow you to insult her like this. Pearl Carter, I know you don't like me. You want to drive me out of the Carter family. I did do something wrong, but I can't accept you using these words to force me to leave. Our orphanage has many trafficked children. They're all very pitiful. Dad, Mom, I know you won't forgive me. I'll leave right now. I'll never appear again. Grace's eyes got redder as he spoke and he turned to run outside. Ethan chased after him and grabbed his arm. Grace, don't listen to that lunatic. I believe you. Ethan, thank you for believing me. Grace gripped Ethan's clothes and cried. But my self-respect won't allow me to continue after being insulted like this. Didn't you just say something, telling me to rot in the Lee family? I interrupted Grace's words. Too bad the family that bought me back wasn't named Lee. The first family that bought me was named Lee. In 5 years I was sold to 4 different families. The first family was an old bachelor. The first time he saw me he wanted to pull my pants off. I knelt on the ground begging him to let me go. I said my parents had lots and lots of money. He said okay, but the moment I ran out the door he punched me down and dragged me back by one leg. At that time half my face was scraped raw, exposing white bone. Didn't expect the more bloody it was, the more excited the old bachelor got. He pulled out his thing wanting to shove it in my mouth. Maybe because he'd never had a woman he got too excited. That thing just got close to my face when he died. At the time the old bachelor had locked the door. I wanted to save him but couldn't. So I was locked up with a corpse for about half a month. The old bachelor's relatives came to the door before discovering this. I thought after he died that person would let me go. Who knew that person turned around and sold me to the second family. I forget when I started becoming like this, cold-blooded, heartless, losing empathy. If people provoked me I'd retaliate in extreme ways. If someone cursed me I'd pull out their tongue. If someone hit me, as long as it didn't kill me, I'd burn down their house. So even though I was sold to so many families, I never lost my innocence. I also thought maybe my subconscious was protecting me. And it was precisely because of my methods that the last family finally couldn't stand it anymore. They actually contacted the police station themselves, saying they'd bought a child. After I said this, my parents finally remembered that the family that handed me over wasn't named Lee, they were named Howard. Mom and Dad's eyes went dark. Ethan reacted and asked Grace with red eyes, "What's really going on?" A flash of panic crossed Grace's eyes, but he quickly calmed down. "I remembered wrong." "Po, what do you mean? Just because I said the wrong surname you think I'm a human trafficker? Aren't you being too hasty?" "All right," he said. "I did something not so great to you today, but you didn't suffer too much damage. If you don't want me in your house then I'll leave." After speaking he quickly walked toward the door. "Grace-chan, are you running?" I sneered. "Who says my evidence is just this? The biggest evidence is this kennel." He froze. I smiled. "If I'm not mistaken this kennel is your home base, right?" Before being sold to the old bachelor, I briefly stayed in a small dark room for 2 days. The room was very dark, whether day or night not a bit of light came through. But I vaguely remember the whole room was filled with the smell of dogs and I constantly heard dog barking. That smell, I've never forgotten it. The moment I stepped in here I confirmed it. This is where the traffickers' transfer station was when they kidnapped me. Grace laughed. "You really are brain sick. Every kennel in the world smells the same. Just based on this." In that room I left a mark. I walked straight to the nearest police officer. "Please search carefully." At that time I bit my finger and wrote my name on the wall in blood. Hearing this, the police immediately took it seriously, organizing personnel to carefully search all rooms in the kennel. Grace's face became paler and paler as the police search area expanded. He tried to stay calm, but the panic in his eyes could no longer be completely hidden. Ethan noticed his nervousness and couldn't help frowning. "Grace, tell me, is this true or not?" Grace forced a smile. "Ethan, believe me. I really didn't do this." Just then a police officer ran out to report. "We found a secret room. There are iron rings and chains fixed to the floor inside. Looks like they were used to lock people up." Everyone's hearts jumped. Dad supported Mom, who was about to faint. Another officer carefully examined the mottled wall and shouted, "Here." Found dark red marks on the wall. Looks like writing. Technicians came too, using special light sources to illuminate and photograph the evidence. Soon the results came out. Those dark brown marks were 2 words written in blood years ago. Pearl. The evidence was ironclad. Ethan broke down. He grabbed Grace's shoulders hard, his eyes bloodshot. "Why, Grace? Tell me why. What did our Carter family do wrong to you? You were only 12 years old back then. How could you do such a thing? You clearly knew how much pain we were in from losing her. How could you hurt her while enjoying our love and guilt?" Grace, with the last layer of disguise stripped away by me, he still acted pitiful. "Ethan, how can you believe a mental patient? If this counts as evidence, I have evidence too." After speaking, he opened his bag. When Ethan leaned over to look, Grace pulled out a knife and held it to Ethan's neck. Everyone was shocked, including Ethan, who'd just been defending him. "Grace? Why else? Because you're stupid. You're all too easy to fool." Grace's eyes reddened. "You chose me as your daughter. Why did you have to find her back? I hate you." As he spoke, several officers surrounded them. Mom and Dad watched from the side, their hearts nearly jumping out. They tearfully begged Grace to show mercy for old times' sake. Grace didn't really want to hurt Ethan. He demanded a car from the police, demanded money from Mom and Dad. The police quickly arranged a car. Dad also notified his secretary, who brought $500,000 in cash and put it in the car. Grace backed away step by step with Ethan. Just as he was about to get in the car, Ethan suddenly turned around. The knife drew straight across his neck. Then, taking advantage of Grace's shock, he pressed him directly to the ground. Blood from Ethan's neck dripped onto Grace's face. He froze for a few seconds, then suddenly laughed loudly. Laughing and laughing, tears came out too. Grace cursed, "Fking crazy person. You and your real sister are both fking crazy." Grace was arrested. After police interrogation, he confessed to his participation in trafficking me. Just as I'd guessed, the orphanage director and he were accomplices. And the kennel really was their transfer station. Surprisingly, he wasn't an orphan. The orphanage director was actually his real mother. He'd been his mother's tool from childhood, transitioning from unwilling to willing. He'd targeted me. Only then did I learn that trafficking me was something his mother hadn't participated in. It was during one outing when Grace saw how our family of four interacted. Seeing how well my family treated me, he was crazy with jealousy and planned it all. He deliberately sold me to a village where I'd never be found, deliberately ran into my brother, called him brother to make him soft-hearted, then told my brother he wanted to become family. Later, my brother told Mom and Dad, and they adopted him from the orphanage. He thought I'd never get out. Never expected I'd be forced into becoming mentally ill, to the point where the whole village didn't dare buy any more children. Finally, Grace and his mother were sentenced to life imprisonment. Based on their confessions, many trafficked children and women were found. When I learned this news, I'd been sent abroad by Mom and Dad for treatment. After learning what I'd suffered, they resolutely handed all the family business to Ethan and searched everywhere for experts to treat my condition. Learning that a certain country had a very skilled doctor, they bought tickets without a second thought. During this time, I never went out. If I had thoughts of hurting others or myself, I'd take sleeping pills. The effect was quite obvious. Since Grace was arrested, Ethan had been dispirited for a while. First, because in the whole family he had the deepest feelings for Grace. Second, because he felt he had no way to face me. Even when we met at home, he'd just nod at me and run away before I could speak. On the day I went abroad, Ethan saw our family off at the airport. He stared at my face, wanting to speak but hesitating. Later, Mom and Dad noticed and had us have a good talk. We stared at each other for a long time. Just when I was getting impatient, Ethan lowered his head. "Pearl, I'm sorry. It's my fault." His eyes turned completely red. After saying this, tears fell like broken beads non-stop, and he couldn't wipe them away no matter how hard he tried. "Actually, in the first 2 years after you left, I really missed you. I was in so much pain. I kept thinking, if I'd taken you to school that day, maybe this wouldn't have happened." Ethan got sadder as he spoke, "But there are no ifs. You were kidnapped. Mom and Dad were in even more pain than me. I felt the whole family couldn't keep being trapped in sadness, so first I stopped mentioning you at home. Later I met Grace." Ethan said he had Mom and Dad bring Grace home because he wanted them to stop missing me and return to normal life. He brainwashed himself to treat Grace as his real sister. Over time, he really did transfer all his feelings for me onto Grace. "Pearl, I've been thinking about a lot of things these past few days." By the end, Ethan's voice was hoarse. "I'm so sorry. Before you came back, he told me a lot of bad things about you. I was afraid you'd replace his position. I was afraid he'd be bullied. I was afraid Mom and Dad wouldn't love him anymore. But I forgot, you also suffered a lot. I'm sorry, I'm sorry." While he was crying sadly, I stepped forward and hugged him. Ethan's body stiffened. Then he heard me say, "It's okay, Ethan. I forgive you." Just as Ethan said, he'd transferred his feelings for me onto Grace, which is why he treated her so well. So Ethan really had been very, very good to me before. For the sake of all that past goodness, I could forgive him once. And I would work hard to cure my illness for Mom and Dad's sake, becoming the Pearl Carter from their memories again. And that's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. See you next time.